Hello and welcome to Cretaceous Cantina, where today we're having a look at the Mattel Jurassic World Dino Rivals Dual Attack Nasutoceratops. I picked this up at my local Walmart. They retail for $14.97. We previously looked at the new Allosaurus from this same wave assortment, and like with the Allosaurus, there's not really any information on what these are supposed to be promoting, because you can see at the far right it says as seen in battle at Big Rock, but we honestly don't know what that is. I mean, we've speculated that it's probably some sort of a show or a live action short, maybe appearing in front of a movie later this summer, or maybe not. But we really don't know. These just kind of showed up in surprise, and there's practically no information at this point from Mattel or from Universal as to what the tie-in here is supposed to be. So in any case, this is a dual attack item, so you can see it does show you the two features so that you can try it before you buy it. I really like the royal blue. I think it contrasts very well with the orange and the yellow. It also says new at the upper right. At the back, you can see that this has tail strike, and it looks like the Nasutoceratops is taking out the Concavenator. You also get head strike, and the image there of the Nasutoceratops, very contrasted, and obviously it's a glamour shot, so it looks a bit different from the toy. On the lower left, you can see other items available in this wave. We've already looked at Allosaurus. In our next video, we will take a look at the repainted Concavenator. And here's the bottom. If anybody wants any of that information, there it is. Alright, so I'm going to take a moment, get this unboxed, and when we come back, we'll take a closer look at Nasutoceratops. Alright, so here is the Nasutoceratops out of the packaging, and my friends, you are in for a treat. This thing looks incredible. When you look at it in the package, it looks big, it looks hefty, and it looks cool, but when you actually get it out of the packaging and take a closer look at it, like this, you can really appreciate how great it looks. I mean, just the physique, the proportions, all of that looks so good. This thing has a really big skull, and it is very detailed looking, very nicely sculpted, interestingly painted, and the horns especially look really great, because it's not like the Triceratops, which, you know, it was part of the mold and they just painted the horns, and that led to a lot of paint slop. These are actually sculpted differently and then attached into the skull on the sides, and that allows, of course, for pretty much perfect looking horns, because they're cast in this color already, so they don't need to paint them. But just all around, I'm really digging how awesome this looks, and I haven't even really gotten through the review yet. It just looks really, really good. And while the colors may not be everybody's cup of tea, I think that you can't deny that it does look pretty detailed, and it is a very interesting look for this dinosaur. Let's take a close-up look at the head sculpt, and it's really detailed. They did a nice job sculpting all the intricacies of this ceratopsian skull. I mean, you can see a lot going on here. The ridges along the skull itself look very nice. There's a lot of nice little things here to look at. You can see a lot of little bumps and ridges, lots of little creases. Even the beak is pretty nicely done. Unfortunately, some of that does get lost in the paint, because first of all, you can see how tiny the eye looks. It's not painted 100% like dead on. I mean, it's pretty close, but it's just tiny and it's black. So it really gets lost in this jumble of colors that you see here. And same is true for the other side. I mean, it's just a tiny little thing, so you can barely see the eye. So I think that is a negative aspect. I think maybe the eye should have been painted a little bit better. Maybe they just should have avoided, you know, some of this red paint so close to the eye, because that's part of the reason you can't see it. If it would have been set back a little farther, maybe the eye would stand out a little bit more. Or maybe they could have painted the eye like they did the Triceratops, maybe yellow with a little black dot, but it's just like a little black slash, so it looks a little strange. They did paint the front here of the beak in this, you know, ivory color, and it does kind of extend pretty high up, which is a little odd as well. Unfortunately, they didn't paint the rest of the beak, so that too kind of gets lost in this blue teal coloring that you have down here. So I think that definitely could have been better. Looking at the horns, I did mention these are separately sculpted and then applied onto the head. And you can see a little bit of the glue there where they attached them, but they are sculpted nicely. You can see some lines running through to kind of make them look a little bit more like bone, I suppose. So that does look pretty nice. Some really big nostrils sculpted in there. Now the rest of the body actually looks quite excellent. You can see there's a lot to look at here. I just love the scaling of the skin and all the details that you have on this sculpt. It looks really good. The feet look great. You can see it's kind of like in this walking sort of position. And it seems like it shares some parts with the dual attack Triceratops. So we'll look at that in just a little bit. But just looking at the dinosaur on its own. I mean, I'm really pleased. I'm really pleased and impressed with the level of sculpted detail on this dinosaur. It just looks really good. No matter how you angle it. It's a little soft down here. I mean, not gonna lie, looking at it down here, it is very soft. All the great sculpting you have, like on the sides and on the legs, is gone, like down here for some reason. So they kind of cheaped out. Maybe they just wanted it to look a little bit different. I guess that's possible, but I mean, that's noticeably, it just looks a little bit too perfect, a little too smooth. Now let's talk a little bit more about this colors. It is basically, I think the base color they went with is this sort of bluish color. It's a very deep blue, but it has a little bit of green in it too. And that becomes a lot more obvious when you get down here to the bottom of the legs and you have more of this like turquoise sort of color that's placed in there. And it almost has like a metallic sort of feel to it. It's not metallic, but it has a very reflective sort of quality to it given the way that they painted it. You also have these deep reddish coral colors that are kind of going down the skull and the side of the body here. And again, you do have this ivory color down here at the bottom that kind of goes down the torso on the underside as well and down the tail too. So it's really interesting. I mean, you look at this and it definitely catches your attention, which is good because a lot of the toys in this line, look a little bit on the drab side. Even the colorful ones don't always look that interesting. You look at this and this, just grabs your attention. I think it looks great. So let's talk articulation. So of course the head action is built into the action feature, but what really impressed me here is that they implemented another joint for the head. So you can kind of see it in there. I can move the head to the sides a little bit and it stays put. So if you look here at where the neck is, where it attaches, you can see that that is actually a separate joint so that you can move it that way. So I think that's pretty great. And of course the neck joint itself is integrated into the action feature. So here for the legs, they go forward. They are kind of ratcheted. For the front legs, they go forward and back. It doesn't really seem like they go out. They're not going out. The back ones, however, do go out and they go forward and back. They are pretty tight on this particular dinosaur, but there you go. Now the tail is also built into the action feature. So this is a dual attack once again. So you're going to have the two features. So the buttons are pretty well concealed here at the top. You hit the button there right behind the head in the front, and it lifts the head up and down. It's pretty nice, pretty smooth. You do have to press it a little bit hard, but that's probably because the head is pretty heavy. Now for the back, you have tail swiping action. So it's basically the same as the dual attack Triceratops. If you're doing the Jurassic Facts app, there is the scan code right there. Not sure if it's going to show up, but you can give it a go. Here's the card that comes with the Nasutoceratops, and you can see it right there, kind of just strolling along. It looks okay. And here are the stats for it. So its greatest asset is that it is strong, and that's no surprise when you look at the toy. It looks very strong. Its speed is a 4, not too fast. Its intelligence is a 3, not too bright. And its ferocity is a 7, so be careful if you're hanging around Nasutoceratops. All right, so here we have the dual attack Triceratops next to the dual attack Nasutoceratops. Now, the Nasutoceratops is very noticeably larger than the Triceratops. It's a lot heftier. When you pick up the box, it feels like a heavy toy because it is. And I also made the assumption earlier that there were some shared parts between the two, and I was partially right because I assumed that the legs were going to be the same sculpts, the same molds and everything, but they're actually not. None of them are. The legs back here look similar, but they're actually not the same sculpt at all. There's some differences here. And that is pretty easy to see because you do have like these scars that are kind of sculpted into the legs. And that isn't present on the Triceratops. So that is a nice touch. However, the tails are going to be shared the same between the two dinos. So the same tail on Nasutoceratops, same tail on Triceratops. And it works a lot better on Nasutoceratops because you can see that it's a very proportionate looking dinosaur, whereas with the Triceratops, the tail is just a little bit too long. So it's interesting how it worked out very well for the Nasutoceratops, though. Nasutoceratops, have to enunciate a little bit better. And yeah, it's just kind of funny when you look at them, like how much bigger the Nasutoceratops really is. It's a lot heftier. It's a lot bigger. It's girthier. I mean, it's you can definitely feel it. when you pick them up. It's pretty funny. Yeah, I mean, the Nasuto just looks a lot more detailed to me. It looks a lot more like what I'd like to see Mattel doing with this toy line, looking at it next to the Triceratops. Triceratops isn't bad, but it's a bit small. If they would have made it the same size as the Nasutoceratops, I think a lot of collectors would have been a lot happier with the size. But I mean, just looking at them side by side, I mean, the Nasutoceratops is more massive and more impressive than the Triceratops. All right, so here we have one of our Owen figures next to Nasutoceratops. You can see how he scales next to that dinosaur. The dinosaur is pretty big next to Owen. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so there you have it. This is the Mattel Jurassic World Dino Rivals Dual Attack Nasutoceratops, as seen in Battle at Big Rock, whatever that means. So overall, you guys, I love this dinosaur. I think that it is fantastic. Like with most things in this line, it falls short of perfect, and for me, that mostly lies in the way that the paint is done on the face. The eye is just very unnoticeable because of the way that it's painted. So that could have been a little bit better. The beak could have been painted. That way you see it a little bit better because it kind of gets lost with all those colors. But other than that, I am completely happy with the way that this turned out. The sculpting on it is very detailed. It's exactly what I want to see Mattel doing with this toy line. It's very proportionate. It has a very nice heft to it. It feels like you're getting your money's worth. When you pick this up off the shelf and you bring it home, you definitely feel like you're getting your bang for your buck. The articulation is quite nice. It's everything that it needs to be. I am pretty happy with the bonus of the added head movement, so you can move it back and forth. That is pretty cool. The action features work very well. And yeah, it's a little bit smooth on the bottom side of the dinosaur. There's not a whole lot of detail if you look at its belly, but you're not really going to be looking at that, so I can look past that. Overall, I think this is going to be one of my top 10 favorite dinosaurs in this toy line. Certainly one of my favorite herbivores, and I highly, highly, highly recommend that if you're buying this line, you add this to your collection because I think it just looks pretty outstanding. Not perfect, but pretty outstanding, and I love it. Just gotta say, I love this thing. Alright, my friends, I hope that you've enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts down below. What do you think about the Nasutoceratops? Will you be picking it up and adding it to your collection? Be sure to follow on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for the latest news and updates. And be sure to subscribe to the Collect Jurassic World podcast. You can download it from your favorite podcast provider or listen to it over on the Collect Jurassic YouTube channel. As always, I'd like to thank you for tuning in to Cretaceous Cantina. Until next time, bye-bye.